So, Bat Family, it wouldn't really be right to start off this year unless the first video on my channel was indeed a Batman video, and I thought since part 3 had so many questions, and I actually said in that video I hope to get part 4 out before New Year's, I took a little bit of time to rest and recharge, but either way, here we are with part 4 of the kind of Batman. This kind of turned into a series, like a series discussing from me to you, from you to me on the channel about just speculation about the film, what we kind of want to see. You guys ask me questions that I can't necessarily answer for a fact, but through my own kind of intuition and what I know about Batman, well, I mean, I guess for a lot of the reason why you guys watch me, I kind of provide my perspective on the film from what I want, what I think could happen, from what I know, from what the vibes we get in the trailer. And yeah, I'm really happy that you guys are enjoying this series, and I've still got so many questions left over from part 3. I'm going to do my best today to get through as many as I can. 99% of you are really enjoying this, and there's a couple of people saying like, but why are you making videos on this when there's only like a sizzle reel of a trailer? I get what you mean, but that doesn't mean from that trailer we can't, you know, still talk about the movie and what we want to see. Basically what I just said a second ago, just have a big discussion. And what I love most about this is that I get to interact with you guys on a very real level, because your questions get highlighted in these videos and we discuss it. You leave your thoughts down in the comments, and overall it's just a fun time. So I'm going to keep this series up for as long as I'm not repeating questions, if that makes sense. So I do encourage you guys to check out part 1, 2, and 3 in the description or in the top pinned comment. I normally link everything there, but I've been rambling enough in this intro, so I hope you guys had a good Christmas and a good New Year's, and let's just look forward to the content to come, even though the Batman is in 2022. But yeah, this year we're going to for sure get a lot more promo, and this series I'm guessing will continue. So starting with number 1 from Mark Johnson, how do I see Bruce and Alfred's relationship playing out? Will Alfred approve of the Batman crusade, think Bruce is crazy, etc.? So I see a very specific Alfred with Andy Serkis's casting. I feel like with what we've seen from Matt Reeves, the vision is very, very clear, and I just feel really tapped into that funnel, so to speak. I could be wrong with some of my things that I'm talking about. So I feel like Alfred is going to approve of it. I don't think he's going to think Bruce is crazy. I think, if anything, he might endorse it, especially after what happened to the Waynes. It's going to be interesting to see if there was initial doubt there, if they're going to explore that, since, don't forget, we're picking up in Batman Year 2. I believe Matt Reeves did actually specifically say it's around 1 year, 6 months in, somewhere around there. So I don't know if we're going to see, like, that initial conversation of when Bruce comes back home. It's like, hey, Alfred, I'm going to do this now. That's going to be very, very fascinating to see how that storytelling may or may not be told, because I'm not saying we're going to get the Wayne death or anything like that, but we could get lines to it, references to it, or a line from Pattinson's Bruce to Alfred saying, oh, come on, Alfred, we both know you didn't like what I was doing at the beginning, whereas now he kind of is on board with it. Something like that. But either way, bottom line, he will be very on board with it. I think he himself, with his military history, will be very, very valuable to Bruce's journey as Batman. Maybe he even helped teach him some of his fighting moves, but I'm not saying he's fully responsible for it, because I really do feel like Bruce does have to do his cliche travel around the world thing, and he can't learn it all from an ex-military guy like Alfred, even though he can get a lot from Alfred, of course. But also, I think we'll see him in the Batcave in a similar way to Jeremy Irons' Batman. We see him tinkering with stuff with Ben Affleck's Batman. We're going to see him help build the Batmobile. Or let me rephrase that. The Batmobile's already been built, but I assume Alfred helped Bruce tinker with that. I'm sure Bruce is capable of doing that himself, but you get the vibe I'm going for. And Sariko Capone says, do you ever want to see Damian Wayne in this trilogy, and what are the chances we see Selina and Talia fight? Thanks, Boba Fett. So just to address that comment again from a couple of people saying, aren't some of these questions so obvious that that's not going to be the case? I still choose questions like this to answer just for the masses of people out there who may feel like we might get this, that, and the other in the series, or Damian Wayne, or something like this question from Rico. So I'm not ripping into Rico at all. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but this is an example where I feel like, you know, when you're saying, do I ever want to see Damian Wayne in this trilogy? I don't think I do want to see that. Secondly, I don't think it would even ever go there unless there's major time jumps, but that's another question I'm going to answer in this video about my thoughts on time jumps and how I don't think that's in line with this trilogy and what it wants to achieve with Bruce Wayne's journey into the Batman. So as for Damian Wayne, like, no. And will we see Selina and Talia fight? Like, I guess I can't prove to you guys that Talia al Ghul won't be in this series, this trilogy, should I say. But no, like, I really don't think that's the canon that Matt Reeves is going to delve into. I could be wrong, but I really feel like that's a far-fetched kind of, you know, plot for this trilogy. I feel like it's going to be a lot more, not, the word isn't grounded, because you could still argue Pattinson's Bruce Wayne will meet that person one day, even though I feel like Matt Reeves is going to set up the end game of Selina Kyle in this trilogy, rather than Talia al Ghul and Damian Wayne into the future. But either way, do I want to see Damian Wayne? No. I do feel like this trilogy is going to have a timeline quite tightly knit close together, and Damian Wayne is like over here, and this trilogy is going to be set around here. That's even if, technically, in your headcanon, Matt Reeves would ever have projected in his own mind for Damian Wayne to be there somewhere down the line, which I really do not think is the case. But if you ever see some questions that you feel like, Boba, isn't that obvious? Why are you even highlighting this? I still choose to answer these questions just because I feel like there's going to be some people out there who really don't know too much about Batman, but are still really, like, fascinated by the character and might not know what could happen in the movie, and I just want to still give them the information of, I don't think that's going to happen at all, kind of thing. So Adrian Yonan says, I hope the trilogy always jumps up a couple of years so we can see a more developed Batman and see how much he's grown in the time jump, and then we could get Robin, either Timothée Chalamet or Dylan Minnette. So I found this very interesting. I really wanted to highlight this question because, as I said, I'll hold my hands up if I'm wrong about time jumps, but I'm not saying there aren't going to be time jumps, but the reason why I don't think they're going to be a couple years or anything like that is just because I think what Matt Reeves is going for here is the journey, the psychological development of Bruce Wayne, and I know that's going to be fulfilled to an extent by the end of the first movie, because this first movie is called The Batman. I think what this trilogy is going to achieve is the development of the Batman and Bruce Wayne. So to do dramatic time jumps where you're getting 2 years is a long time, especially in a hero's career. Like, a lot of things can happen in 2 years. I know you could say Christopher Nolan did time jumps in the Dark Knight stuff, but like, I feel like with this approach, it truly is about the development of Bruce Wayne, the psyche. And that's going to be more probably approached in the first film, for all I know, than the other two, with Batman ego being referenced and stuff like that. However, to just dissolve 2 years from, you know, the Batman, the first movie, and then the second installment in this trilogy, like to just skip over 2 years, that would compromise the vision that I think they're striving for with this. Just imagine 2 years gone. It's like, oh, well, Bruce, I know what you're going for. Like, we would be able to jump to a point where I think fans would want to see this, that, and the other with that far into Bruce Wayne / Batman's career. However, I really don't think they're going to do that for the sole reason of that it would just compromise the very thing they're going for, and that's to tell quite a cohesive story of Bruce Wayne's growth. I think the max time jump we would get is months. I would, at least that's what I would like. You know how like a CW network show like The Flash, between seasons might have a 5 to 6 plus month gap, give or take. I think almost that is too long, but it could be 4 to 6 months. At least that's what I'm going to go with. Nothing more than a year. If it was maybe a year, maybe, but 2 years is a big no-no. At least from what I can tap between the telepathic hacking I'm doing into Matt Reeves' head. At least that's what I'm deluding myself to think. So the movie Raider says, since the movie's original release date was 2021, and it's possible that behind the scenes they were planning a sequel for 2023, could we get the Batman in 2022 and the second film just 1 year later in 2023, with the third film potentially in 2024? Or is that not a good release strategy? So I actually talked about release dates in my last video, and how I said, it was actually in reference to a Joker question, and how, you know, people are talking about Joker fatigue, and I'm saying, yeah, I get what you're saying there for fans who are fatigued with that character, and should he be in this trilogy? But don't forget, the third film, let's say they introduced a Joker in the third film, that would be around 2025 or at latest 2026, so I think people will want him again by then. So just to kind of like link that into this, no, I don't think the second film would be in 2023. Since this movie has been pushed back to 2022, there's no way they would just be like, oh, but the second film's still coming out in 2023. If something's been pushed back, everything else that was in front of it, like the second and third film, will be pushed back according to the delay and the amount of time it's been delayed for, and it'll make those adjustments to those movies as well. So the Batman 2022, I still expect for the second film a couple of years, until we see, give or take, the second movie. So that's why I say 2024, and then the third movie, give or take, 2026. I know that that's a very rough thing. I'm not saying that as a fact, that's my opinion, but if you look at it logistically, that is, if you're building a trilogy with average amount of pre-production time these days, because compared to the early 2000s, movies do go quite fast, and I know they're taking greater care with the Batman, but it's not like Lord of the Rings, where like for the Fellowship they took like 2 years of pre-production and then started making the film. These days it's not much pre-production, and then they make the film, and then it gets pumped out. So yeah, I still expect a couple of years, so 2024 for the second film, so if things go according to plan, that is. And then for the third movie, I would expect it to be in the latter of 2026, something around there. Daryl Andrews says, do you think he stopped Joker in the first year Batman since the Joker gang? So I believe you're referencing the kind of online theory, and yet again, I don't know if you're talking about this as well, because I've actually spoken about this in these previous Batman plot and theory videos, if you will. It's a possibility. I think you have the risk of annoying some fans if Matt Reeves doesn't incorporate what you're saying here into the movie at the time of where the Joker is revealed. So like it's depicted on screen and annotated when the Joker is saying something like, we've met before, you don't remember me, do you? But you should. And then like it does like a very quick 10 to 15 second flashback of where he got pushed in the Ace Chemicals vat or whatever, and Batman didn't know who this guy was, or he accidentally fell in a very cliche Jack Napier kind of way. You guys get the thing I'm going for, and Batman thought, oh, that sucks for that guy, but like I didn't technically do that to him, and he just got on with his life. And here we are at 1 year, 6 months in. Or should I say by the third film, maybe 3 to 4 years in. But either way, my point is, there's a theory going around online that maybe the Gotham PD show was gonna somehow do their own iteration of the Red Hood gang. But don't forget that Gotham PD is from the perspective of a corrupt cop, quote-unquote, kind of battling for his soul. He's obviously gonna be corrupt, but like not really be okay with that, and maybe have like a path to redemption. And they could, you know, with this drop gang thing going on, you know, the whole drops that Gotham citizens are taking, the theory online that I believe you're referencing is that maybe that was distributed or created by the Joker, and maybe in Batman's first year, which, by the way, Gotham PD is set in, so literally when we're getting the Gotham PD HBO Max show, Robert Pattinson's Batman's out there, that we could hear through a news report but not actually see him, that the Batman caused a ruckus at Ace Chemicals, blah, 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 somebody fell in, and then, like, he doesn't surface until many, 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 many months later, like in the comics, but we don't actually see him maybe until the third movie. I know that this is way too big for me to just be answering this in a single question, but do I think that he stopped Joker in his first year? It's possible, but going back to what I said, that could annoy people if, like, we didn't actually see the creation, and it's just done through Gotham PD. I think it's an interesting approach, but I think if they're going to do what you're asking, if he's already stopped him before, just like, for example, in the New 52 comics, he just, like, surfaced months and months later, I think fans would want to have that penny drop moment depicted on screen for Batman, for when he realizes, oh, you're the guy I stopped, like, a couple of years ago. Well, but you fell in somewhere and everyone thought you died. But that kind of thing. Let me know what you think of that. Would you like to see that, like, he stopped him before but he didn't know it kind of thing? That is actually in line with the comics, and it would have set up a Joker already out there in the world in this movie, and in the second movie, and in the third movie. It just depends when Matt Reeves wants to actually introduce that character that is already out there somewhere. Or, like some believe, maybe already in Arkham, and maybe he's already been arrested because of the whole droplet drug thing that he'd been busted for. But it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. But this is what all these videos are about. Fun, speculation, you name it. So next question is from Fabian. BobaTalks, I've got 2 more questions for you. If Matt Reeves really wants to put Bane in the Batman trilogy, do you think, in your opinion, that he can pull with Bane using Venom to at least get super strength and being grounded in reality? And how do you want Bane to look like in the Batman trilogy? So I do believe that Matt Reeves is gonna not strictly do what Nolan did in terms of like, oh, Bane, we've brought Bane into the movie, but he's not comic book Bane. I think what Matt Reeves is doing is mimicking a grounded world, but like bringing the accuracies from the comics with the characters. So yes, if Bane was brought in this film or in this trilogy, where he will have Venom that will make him stronger, and he will approach it in a grounded way. However, as I've reiterated before, when you're talking about Clayface, I feel like villains like that may be avoided because the amount of, like, believability that takes with CGI and things like that may compromise the grounded stuff. So he may try and bring you characters like Bane. I'm not saying Bane is coming or anything, but more believable ones like Poison Ivy, where it doesn't require so much, I don't know, almost eccentric translation from comic book page to movie that doesn't, as a result, compromise the grounded feeling. So I feel like they can maintain the grounded feeling with Bane, even with Venom, and with characters like Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, characters like that. However, Clayface keeps getting brought up. I just feel like he's a good example of, like, yeah, technically he should be in the world, but if you highlight him, it may break kind of the stage that Matt Reeves is set up. I trust a lot of you guys know what I mean there. And how would I want Bane to look like? Well, I think it's like a mixture. I don't think he should be literally necessarily golfing big like the comics. They could even do a Tom Hardy-esque approach. However, I would want accurate casting there. It's just maybe the Venom, granted that he would use Venom, wouldn't maybe blow him as much up like the comics or the video games. It would give him strength. Believe it or not, yes, I'm going to reference the Gotham TV show because they did a prototype of Venom in that. And I feel like that they actually did an arguably good job of what you could do in live action that didn't look too terrible. But then imagine that with a movie budget. So I believe that was called, I think it was called Viper. Go search up Gotham Viper. Maybe I'm showing the clip on screen. I do not know. It made people stronger, but it didn't necessarily like boost them up until proper Bane levels. So yes, another example here. Yes, you can do Venom, just kind of in a similar way to Gotham TV show did with its prototype Viper, and not necessarily break the grounded reality that you've also set your movie universe up in. So Sir Big Beard asks, do I think that the essence of Batman or the feel of it being a comic book movie will get lost in the crime lord story we're appearing to get? How do you think Reeves will work to balance this from what we know? I feel like the way you're phrasing that question is as if like the crime lord story isn't a Batman established thing, whereas it is, and I apologize if I'm misinterpreting your question, but like it is also what we know. I feel like you're just saying like, you know, how is he also going to bring stuff that we know into what he's already giving us? But I argue that what he's giving us is actually a take of Batman that is very much so been visited, but it's just not actually been visited on screen or represented in quite a long time. Like, we've had Batman movies, but it's never been the master detective Batman that actually has been very much so a consistent thing in the comics. So it's interesting to hear your take on this, just because I feel like a lot of people may think, hey, this isn't kind of the Batman I'm used to, whereas in fact that's just because they've brought elements of master detective crime noir-y Batman in movies before, but never to the degree of where Matt Reeves is capitalizing upon it, where he's actually cementing his trilogy in the fact that this guy is the most genius detective on planet Earth, and he's trying to figure this stuff out with a very intellectual villain like the Riddler. It's actually perfect, and I fanboy out every time I think of that concept in my head. So I think he will bring in balance from, I guess, what has been popularized more so in recent years with maybe other villains in the other two movies. And also, don't forget, we've got Penguin, we've got Iceberg Lounge by the looks of it, and things in this movie. So you will have a lot of things that you're familiar with. But I'm very happy that we've got this capitalized upon crime noir detective story Batman, because that is actually who Batman is. But we also do have things that we know from, like, where we see him beating the crap out of a criminal at the end of the trailer and the Batmobile and stuff like that. It's just going to be, I think, to answer your question, how he tackles the next two films. Who are the next main villains going to be? Will that still follow suit with this movie, and how the Riddler is such an intellectual villain who leaves clues and stuff you need to crack in a very crime lord thrillery kind of way, right? And to reference your crime lord thing specifically, yeah, we have Falcone and stuff who are going to be weaved into the story, but don't forget the Riddler is kind of the overarching thing, plus the corruption. But I digress. The reason why I bring up number 2 and number 3 is, like, if we have, let's just say, some other villain like Mr. Freeze, is it going to follow the master detective story there, which I argue technically wouldn't work as it would in the first movie, because in this movie there's clues. He literally has to stop a bomb from blowing someone up, and imagine all the other things. Whereas if you're going up against Poison Ivy or Mr. Freeze, yeah, there's going to be some figuring out things for Batman to do, but not in the same way as what he did in The Batman 2022 with the Riddler. So it's very fascinating to actually think of that. I've never thought of that, to be honest, because he's very distinctly set up a flavor for this universe. Very crime, noir, detective Batman. But what if we get Poison Ivy in the second movie? There will be some figuring out to do, of course, but like, that's not so much in vein with the Batman he's giving us, actually. So that's very interesting. I haven't considered that. Bottom line, I think there still will be a balance. You know, you're still going to see a Batman who's very intimidating. We're going to see action, a lot of action. We're just going to get a lot of capitalization on the master detective Batman, because that couldn't be more perfect for a mysterious villain, serial killer like the Riddler, who's very, very intelligent himself and requires a master detective to figure this stuff out. SM4 Carnage says, when Robin is eventually introduced, I mean, it really is an if. Like, I could easily see them doing it just as much as I can see them not doing it. But this could be the first time in a long, long time, because it's been quite a while since we've had a Robin in live-action Batman. So I'm more inclined to probably place my money on they probably will touch it in 4 years' time, maybe. We'll see. But when Robin is eventually introduced, do you think they'll portray him as Batman's fun-loving opposite for comic accuracy, or go more Titans-esque by darkening him to fit the tone? Or maybe a blend of the two? I think the latter. I think it will be a blend of the two. I think you will have this, let's just say it fits in line with the vision at least I have. Whether you introduce Dick Grayson or not in this first film or the second film, let's just assume there's no Robin outright until movie 3. I think you're going to have, by that point, a Bruce Wayne who had already been hardened by the events of the Riddler in this first movie. He'd already got a bit more of a tap on his impulses and his shadow self and his anger and stuff, which we're going to see a lot of in this first movie, but I argue the whole trilogy. And then you would have this, like, eager, kind of younger, spirited individual of a Robin, let's just say Dick Grayson for just, you know, accuracy, who will be, I think, not an angsty kind of person, but like, I don't think he's going to be like the flipping Robin, this, that, and the other, you know, happy-go-lucky kind of kid. That's what I think comic book page translation to screen, where it makes a difference. Because no matter what, you're not going to have a Teen Titans Go Robin on the flipping screen. I know you're not saying that, but no matter what, the best thing to do, in my opinion, would be to ground it a bit more. Would be to make him, yeah, like, naive, but there's a lot for him to learn. I think you're going to have him maybe be overconfident at points, and Bruce is just going to look at him in such frustration in a moment where he could have got himself killed, or something like that. I think it would be great to explore, actually, the struggling relationship between Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, which, you know, why he eventually leaves to be Nightwing. That would be fantastic. But yet again, don't forget, this is all in the infancy of Batman's career, which is why I'm so, like, on a Robin. But maybe by the final movie, because by then, Batman would be by year 3 or 4 in his career, and in the comics, he has taken on a Robin then. So that's okay. It's just, will they do that? Will they do that? I don't know. It's because this trilogy, I truly do feel, is about Batman. There's so much going on with him that we actually haven't seen explored in other movies, psyche-wise, that Matt Reeves is truly locked sights on. Like, other movies is dabbled in that, but he has got a tunnel vision for that. So, like, it depends if in 4 years' time, by the time they're starting production for the third movie, if the story events would have evolved to a point of where Bruce can find time for someone else other than working on himself. That's the thing that I think I struggle with. And we can only know through finding out more. So yeah, ultimately, I know I went on a tangent there, but I think if they did do it in this trilogy, it would be a blend of the two for sure. And this kid would have quite a bit to learn, but wouldn't be too annoying at the same time. So Seven asks, how do you think other supes will be handled in this universe? Assuming they exist from past quotes and set photos, do you think we will ever get a mention, cameo, or maybe even an appearance by some other League members in the future? So as for the latter, no way. No. Like, we're not going to see Wonder Woman or Superman have an appearance, or Aquaman, The Flash, whatever. There are set photos of Wonder Woman, Halloween, in citizens of Gotham, you know, dressing up for Halloween, Superman. So I believe that out there. I absolutely detest the idea, and fair enough, more power to you if you believe this. But personally, I detest that in this universe, there's a theory out there that There's Batman in this universe, but characters like Superman and Wonder Woman, of which we've seen in set photos, because obviously in the Batman in this movie, it goes through Halloween, and that's why there's lots of people dressed up in Halloween clothing, and it was amazing. We got a lot of people excited when they saw citizens of Gotham dressing up as Superman and Wonder Woman and stuff. And the idea behind this theory is that in this universe, there's comic books of those characters, but they don't exist. Like, Wonder Woman's just a comic book character. Superman's just a comic book character. But in this universe, there's Bruce Wayne's Batman. I really don't like that idea. Don't get me wrong. I could still really enjoy this trilogy, even if that was the case. But I would be so disappointed just on the world-building front. Even though this is just a Batman story, so there's not going to be any other superheroes flying in his little bubble. So I'm not saying they can't tell an amazing Batman story, even if Superman is just a character in this world. But my God, if they actually do that, I would hate it. I really would. So I believe, personally, I have to believe that those people, those citizens of Gotham who are dressing up for Halloween as Superman and Wonder Woman, were dressing up as those characters because Superman's out there. Like, but you're not going to see him. He's just been out there for, like, I don't know, 6 years, 8 years, maybe even 15 years. Who knows? But Batman's just doing his thing. This is it. He's 1 year, 6 months in. He doesn't care about Superman in terms of the Ben Affleck Batman versus Superman Batman. He'll meet him one day, but we're not going to see that. I can't imagine we're going to see that. This is very much still, like, even with those heroes out there in the world, you can still very much so tell a story without ever having to really address those heroes. Other than, I think, you know, what we've seen before in the Gotham newspaper, it really does seem that they're not just characters, by the way. The reason why I don't like that theory is because, A, I think it's ridiculous. You could still do this Batman trilogy in the way I've said it, through having citizens dressing up as their favorite hero from Metropolis, but you're not having to see him. But anyway, there's been a reference in the newspaper from set photos that I've shown in previous videos, and the article talks about, I can't remember the exact story, but whether it was a bus or a train, they were like, they were saved by a flying thing by you-know-who. So, like, I believe that Superman's out there. I believe that's why Gotham citizens, some of them were dressing up as Superman, and that's why I completely reject that Superman's just a comic book character. But as for other appearances, no. This is truly just like, Bruce knows there's metahumans and soups, if you will, in a very boys way, out there. But does he ever have to, like, get their attention and stuff? No, not now. Like, he will technically, in terms of traditionalist canon, meet them one day, but not in this, you know, this is like school, year 1 for him, and year 2. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not gonna, like, go up and meet the teachers right away who are already out there. And I kind of like a world where Batman's only 1 year, 6 months in, when Wonder Woman's already out there. Superman's been out there for, like, 4 years, maybe. Like, he's grown up in a world where there are soups out there. But, like, he's got enough crap to be dealing with in Gotham right now himself. Coleman Slade says, what do you really not want to see in this trilogy? I don't know. Oh, that's an easy one. For me, at least. Just, I don't want to see him kill. I respect any of your opinions of wherever you stand on that, but I don't want to see Bruce kill. I would be absolutely fine if he's like, if you've seen Prisoners with Hugh Jackman, where he beats up Paul Dano, who's obviously playing the Riddler, and he gets so close to killing him in that movie. I wouldn't mind if there's a moment like that. That would actually serve a very good lesson for Bruce of precisely what he wants to avoid, and looking at this almost such anger and rage-filled side of himself in a reflection and being like, oh my God, what am I doing? That'd be great if he almost kills him. Or someone. But do I want to see him killed? No. In my opinion, Batman does not kill. Fair enough if you think there are exceptions to that through, like, collateral damage or whatever, but for the most part, I don't want to see it deliberately portrayed. Sure, you can argue that Christopher Nolan's Batman, Christian Bale, doesn't kill, but there are instances where, like, technically that cop car, through rolling that way, would have probably killed him, but, like, in my eyes, it still wasn't, like, deliberately sought out to tell the audience that Christian Bale's Batman killed. But, like, in this movie, I don't want any instance of anything like that. Davis P says, I think Giancarlo Esposito would be such a good leader of the Court of Owls or Lucius Fox. What do you think? I agree with that, but I think he'd be a better Mr. Freeze. Giancarlo Esposito is a very good villain. And yes, you're wholeheartedly right. He could play a sophisticated character to the point of where he is the one the Court of Owls will look up to as the grand overseer, if you will. As for Lucius Fox, I could see that as well. But no, I could really imagine him as Mr. Freeze. I can really see him conveying so much emotion for his wife, the conquest to save her, yet also this villainous side that he personifies so well. And I think he would be a fantastic casting. And yeah, that would be my pick over Lucius Fox, or even someone as cool as the Court of Owls if they do go there, which I'm neither here nor there on with those theories. I would rather Mr. Freeze. So Thomas James Henderson says, this is an interesting question because, like, I kind of, like, would be okay with it, but I don't know. So do you think that Bruce Wayne in this universe had a sabbatical trip to learn the ways of Batman, or was he trained by Alfred? Maybe Alfred in this movie will be competent in combat and detective work. So I think no matter what, you should always have Bruce, whether it's to a very big extent, like multiple senseis and combat professionals from different cultures training him, which is depicted in most comics. I would always want that. Like, there's a very specific way and formula to what makes Batman. Yes, one of them is money, but one of them is this guy is freaking masterful. Like, with combat, like, there's very specific reasons. You guys know why if you know why. He normally takes a big trip and gets taught by so many people. But having him just trained by Alfred, there is an attractive quality to that. And you're saying maybe Alfred will be competent in this? Well, he's ex-military, and he's had, like, well, depending on the versions, he's been in different kind of groups of military and government kind of things. Like, it's actually really interesting. Gotham did this quite well. Pennyworth is doing it right now on TV. So yes, 100%, Alfred is a trained man. He is like, he could beat the heck out of any, well, not any criminal, but seriously, like in his youth, he's fairly trained. But to Batman, the Batman, to be trained by just one guy, no, I wouldn't be on board with it. And I think that would rub up too many fans the wrong way. And with the amount of homework that Matt Reeves has done, despite the attraction to the quality of just this younger Alfred, Andy Serkis, and you've all seen him in Black Panther, he's a lot more hands-on. I can imagine him being like that way in this movie. I still don't think just because you have a really hands-on, competent Alfred in combat that he is just solely responsible for Bruce's training. I think to an extent, like, he could have taught him a lot of things, but there's still no excuse for how Bruce can do what he does as Batman without having learned what he does in the source material. So I think the sabbatical is a very big necessity, and I would say is fundamental for Bruce, and in any movie or any iteration. I actually think it's borderline silly for just one man to train him. So Milkius Samuel says, hey, BobaTalks, love the channel. Thank you, my friend. Do I think that we'll see Penguin's iconic establishment, the Iceberg Lounge, in this film? Because set photos, of which I haven't really spoken about, I've been waiting for, like, stuff to, like, blow up a little bit more, but I guess I could talk about it right now for those who've made it this far in the video. Because set photos of the film show an ice rink being developed, and the news of a setting in the film called the Gentleman's Club in this new depiction of Gotham. And I believe on one of the set photos it says in this kind of area, Iceberg. But yeah, basically with what we're seeing, I think all arrows point towards Penguin having an Iceberg Lounge. I think Matt Reeves has already gone and told us already through just what he's done. Like, he hasn't said the words, but through what Colin Farrell looks like, this Penguin's very accurate. I would like to think he has an Iceberg Lounge. This is what I mean. You guys have asked me about grounded reality, whilst also asking about meta-powered people or, like, villains like Bane, and if they can achieve both avenues there, reality-looking things, but also soups, right? I also think they're going to do comic book things like grounded reality, but Penguin has a freaking Iceberg Lounge. I think that would be in this as well. I think Matt Reeves is really going to try and give us, to the best of his ability, every corner to the most truest way he can accomplish it. Without, as I said, bringing, I think, someone like Clayface, which would kind of low-key sacrifice that a little bit. It would just be a bit too much for the audience to ask for with the vision that he's made. I know some of you would disagree with me there, and I would love to be proven wrong. I just think Clayface, done in the traditionalist way, would just break that. I know I keep going on about Clayface tangents, but I feel like the metric where I feel like that would be breaking it a bit too far. But yeah, to answer your question, I think, yeah, it's very likely we'll get the Iceberg Lounge from what we're seeing. So Morgie39 asks, what do I think will be the general goal and vision that Reeves will be trying to achieve with this trilogy? I should have answered this earlier. Well, I did. To not repeat myself, basically what I said earlier, you already know what I mean here. I would say the whole trilogy is going to be a character study on Batman. People, and this is true, call Joker a character study of that character. That's very true. And this trilogy is going to be like an extended essay, if you will, of a character study on the Batman. The psychological analysis of Bruce, the growth that he has. Yes, this first movie is called The Batman as it currently stands, or Vengeance, whatever you want to say there. But I think each, you know, if this movie is called The Batman and with a subline like Vengeance, each movie will be like The Batman with a sub kind of title of the next chapter of his growth. So this will be about vengeance. He's angry, he's unfiltered. He'll kind of like learn to master his rage to a degree, even though Batman doesn't ever quite do that, but you get my point. But each chapter of the 3 movies will be almost like the beginning, middle, and end of the growth of Bruce Wayne into the legendary Overlord Protector of Gotham City, which I don't think will really be fully achieved by the end of the first film, but by the end of the trilogy. And yes, believe it or not, there are more questions, but I'm gonna have to end this here. So as for part 5, guys, I really don't know when I'm going to do it, because I feel like we're treading into territory now of getting into similar questions I've answered in older videos. So maybe it depends on set information, or I might just put a post out there on my community tab again and only select questions I know haven't been asked. But now we've got quite a lot of content on the channel, just speculation, discussion, and fun of where I think things are going to go. You may completely disagree with some of the answers I've given in this video, but if you do, I don't mind. I would love to hear your thoughts. Just type whatever in the comments. This is a place for fans who are so excited for this movie to come together and just talk about it. That's the sole purpose of it. Even though we've got like 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes sizzle reel, if you will, of 30% of the movie having been shot that we got from DC Fandom. This is what it's all about, keeping the entertainment and the hype alive. So I really have enjoyed talking about it. Not saying this is the end, it just might be a bit of an interlude from now, who knows. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you did like this video, subscribe for more Batman coverage like this. I've got videos that I'm working on. I've already got a theory video that I want to tackle. It's more of like a question topic of what they could do in the movie, and of what a lot of you have been wondering about already. So I'm looking forward to working on that. So expect another The Batman video in the next week, maybe. But if you want to talk about Batman more with me, I have a Discord server where I'm active in, like voice chat, text chat. Join that. Top links in the pinned comment. No, top pinned comment. Links are there, as always. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, if you have Facebook, I suppose, Instagram, you name it. You can support the channel further on Patreon, or the join button on the channel. It's like another Patreon for YouTube, I suppose. But yeah, really appreciate it. Love you all anyways. Hope you've had a great start to your year. And I hope this video was a welcome one for the new year, for the first video on the channel. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. And I'll see you, Bat Family, in the next video. Goodbye.